Welcome back to Shifted Reality, Season 1, Episode 12. Something came up, and I'll cut to that clip here in a short second. But, quiz time. Do you know what is the front of my base? Now, I imagine a lot of people probably assume that this is the front of my base because, this is where I keep my horses when I come back, and this was the first thing that we built. But no, this isn't the front of the base. And of course, this isn't the front of my base. It's just, where we are currently expanding on the base. Some people might think the front of the base is the bottom of these stairs because this is the way to get up the mountain towards the base. Another easy assumption is since most of the other players are off in this direction, the front of my base must clearly be this gate down at the bottom of the tower to get into it. And that appears to be the assumption that Don made when they delivered a little present here. And if we open this up, he left a compass. So where do you think I plan on putting the front of my base? Well, the answer might surprise you, but it is actually right here that is on the mountain across the river valley that runs next to my base. I always plan to put it over here. And why would I put the base over here? Well, it's for various reasons. Part of it is I wanted a big grandiose bridge that led up to the base. And the thing is, while Green is infamous for not finishing the back of his bases, I tend to not get around to doing the front of my bases very early on into the building because the front of the base really doesn't add that much functionality, and I like my bases to serve a purpose and a goal as well as just being a really cool build. So the idea is I'm going to build a redstone gate here first, just to make sure it lines up. Extend the bridge over that way to line up with the stables. And then extend the bridge across, and once I reach the other side, I'm going to build a second gate on that side as well. Now both of these gates are going to be redstone because I am not particularly skilled in redstone myself. And we're going to get some little bit of help with this. And then we're finally going to have the main entrance to our base established. But first, let's go see what that compass was all about. Now this particular compass is lodestone locked, so it is pointing us to head over to Don's base. So let's head on over here, follow the compass and see what we find. And it appears that it is taking us to this particular build where one of our players on the server has left a letter for all of the server members, just talking about his memories on the server and letting everyone know that he probably won't be able to be online as much. And of course, if you're going to give a letter that gives you a goodbye, might as well make it a prank, because if you don't realize it, you might start drowning or get attacked by a drowned when it drops you into the water. Now this is a clever trick that you can also use against your friends on your own servers, since the lectern gives out a redstone signal when a page is turned. And that's all it is. No fancy redstone, no observers, no skulk sensors. Just every time a page is turned, it will cause the trapdoor to briefly open and then close, which is kind of clever. So here is where I initially had a rundown of how I was rebuilding Red Ore's castle gate design for this redstone gate. And it ended up taking the entire length of this episode, so I decided to release it as a standalone tutorial. And before I released it as a standalone tutorial, I decided we should see if it was effective as a tutorial. So check this out. This is where my daughter took over and followed my tutorial to see how well it would build. I think she did a pretty good job, and according to her, she actually thinks she did a better job of building it following my tutorial than I did building it initially to create the tutorial. So, by all means, leave a comment down below and let me know. Do you really think she built it better than I did in my own tutorial video? And of course, I didn't really just sit around while we were waiting for her to complete her own build. I went on and had my own little adventure where one of our members, Bias Icewing, is a little bit more impacted by the departure of one of our server mates than anyone else so far. He has been lamenting the days that Be the Worker has been gone on the server every single day on our Discord. So I decided to give him a little gift by leaving him something to remember Be the Worker with at his own base. And while I was doing that, I had a little visit from one of our newest members of our server, Train Tritonic. Honestly, I apologize, Train, if I said your name wrong or really butchered it. It's not the easiest to pronounce. I apologize. Now, Train came over and saw what I was doing. Basically, I have two copper bulbs, one that's been waxed, so it stays the orangish red, and the other is eventually going to oxidize into the bluish green. And I have them flashing on and off using what I thought was the simplest design, which is the basic Etho Hopper clock. Now, Train saw this and he thought that he could probably make the flashing timer not only be chunk loading and safe so it doesn't stop when you leave and come back from the chunk, it would also make it so it'd be a little bit smaller and a little bit quieter because it wouldn't have the hopper slamming back and forth. And so he played around with it for a little bit and considered the options. So his redesign just uses redstone torches that turn on and off and a single item in the hopper clock. And while that's a bit faster, the copper bulb staying on when a redstone signal is turned off and only turning off when a redstone signal is received again allows it so you don't notice exactly how fast the new hopper clock is. So it works a lot better and it is quieter, smaller, and we were able to split it apart to put a little space between the lights. So now most of Bias's build this season has been these apartment buildings, these kind of modern day structures. So to fit his feel and his base of semi-modern things, I decided he really needed this ambulance. And I kind of just winged this as I was going. There's certainly things I would have done better. Like I would have tried to center this cross a bit better. And one of the things that we have on this server, similar to Hermitcraft, where they have the head mod to allow for them to collect their heads if they are killed by another player, Real has incorporated this bedrock add-on that offers similar head options. Now, the add-on, which I will ask our server owner, Real Egg, to supply me a link so I can put it in the description down below, allows for us to get not only heads every single time we die, and again, it's not, that aspect is not quite as good as the Hermitcraft mod, which gives a head every time you're killed by another player. So we end up with basically a lot of different heads. And I decided I was going to create a little truck of me driving on Bias's base. And not just any truck, but an ambulance. So I'm driving an ambulance, and if you come into the back here, you can see I have rescued our missing beta worker. And just a little message for Bias saying, hey, I need a hospital to bring him to so he can recover and come back to the server. Now, again, this is just a joke, of course. I just thought it would be funny to put in an ambulance like the avatar of the player is in a quote coma while he is absent. And of course, you need a hospital to treat coma patients. And so I am here to try to rush the avatar of Beta Worker to the hospital. But we'll see if Bias picks up on this joke. I actually have not seen him on in a couple days, but we will see how he responds when he does the next log on. Now, as we prepare to start decorating, there's a few things that we should keep in mind. The first, of course, is that eventually we have to line up with the far side, and the far side is a lot higher off the base ground and terrain than this side. So we have to be thinking, are we going to want to terraform and build that up to meet the ground? Or are we going to have a design that makes sense and works to be put at this higher level? Now, another key detail that we have to think about is eventually it is going to connect up with the rest of our base. So how do we want to get it to match our existing structures? The other things we need to consider is what is our plan for light sources? Because naturally we don't want to have mobs spawning on our bridge or creepers blowing it up as you cross it in the middle of the night. Are we planning to do any sort of exposed light sources? Or is it all going to be hidden light sources? These are the things that you think about before you start building, and you have make sure you have a plan on the design. Now, one of the things that I am going to take advantage of, if I put a block right here, the fence gate is going to attach to the edge, right? And we don't want that. We want it to look like the gate itself is a free moving structure from the rest of the build. So to accomplish that, we are going to take advantage of the fact that fence posts do not connect to walls. Alright, so we're going to redo this because I don't want security breach of being able to just walk around our gate. It's not going to be a very effective gate if you can do that. Just like that. And now, if someone comes up, you can no longer squeeze through here. And it also makes it look like a little track that the gate follows when it's lifted and lowered. So yeah, I like this. It's working out pretty well for me. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. And we are going to base our overall gate design around this concept. Okay, so I followed that pattern a little bit. And as you can see, I wanted to accent the arch layer of it just to really make it stand out with the uneven raise of the gate. And so in order to do that, in order to really plan that out, I thought it was best I just locked it in the upward position using the knowledge I gained having it not work perfectly the first try on my tutorial. Now I know I'm using a lot of tough bricks on this, and the reason for that is I'm actually going to transition from tough bricks into regular bricks when I shift to the quote sunshine level of this build. The tough bricks will serve as a shadowy area where you walk in and the sun never quite hits a direct sunshine, especially since the transition comes straight over the area. So when you come inside where the shadows are cast are going to be the tough bricks. But when we get outside where the sun shines, we're going to use regular stone bricks. And also now, as you can see, where the yellow circuit is for the return mechanism, it's kind of dictating where my max roof is, because I do want the gate to be visible when it is in the up position. And so that's going to dictate where my overall, quote, ceiling is. But we can work with that. And it will, even though this side allows us to be a little bit taller with our tough bricks, we will make it even on both sides just because it'll look better that way. And the other thing that I've done is because I wanted to minimize the connection. So you see here where you have the 4 sections that are in contact with that yellow wool. And this side, we generally avoided having it connect by making all of these tough bricks that are here, well, they're actually just stairs and the back end of it facing outwards, so that it looks like it's flat from the backside, and from the inside, if you were to happen to look up, it just looks like it's an independent gate that rises and lowers. I'm thinking it's starting to come together. So I really did spend some time to think about this, and I definitely want to have a mechanism that automatically open and close the gates as you approach and right across the bridge. And the best way to do that is a skulk sensor, because then you're not dependent on tripwire hooks or hitting a specific pressure plate. But I don't have any skulk sensors. However, Bias Icewing did, and he generously was able to give us 4 of them to help us with our build. So it's been a couple days since I initially completed that tutorial video, and I've been thinking about it, and I decided that I am going to take out this pulse extender by removing that comparator. And then we remove this redstone dust right here, which will then replace that redstone dust with a copper bulb. Now what this now does for me is when I come over here and I press this button, my gate goes up And it stays up because now that copper bulb is on, keeping that piston powered. And then I come down here and press it again, it breaks. Oh. Oh, I know. It broke because it immediately turned off the signal, which caused these to push down at the same time the bottom was pushing up. That's not as simple of a solution as I thought it was going to be. So I thought I had a solution here, because this way, when the bulb turns on, you see a pulse at the bottom, and when it turns off, you see a pulse at the top. The problem is that short little pulse right there isn't long enough to power all the pistons. It times out before they all have had a chance to fire correctly, causing the gate not to fully open. So this solution isn't going to work either. Okay, so my original instinct, I think, actually was the best one. Where if we pull out our camera account here, and we come up and take a look, because I needed to keep that pulse extender in there in order for it to allow it to wait long enough to close the gate. But I still want to keep that piston up when I want the gate to stay up. So now if we look at this, and I activate it, the redstone lamp turns on, and the piston will go up, and it'll stay up, allowing for our gate to stay open. And then if I push the button again, the lamp will turn off, allowing that circuit to complete its task and push it closed. Now, is this the most elegant solution to keeping the gate open between it being going up and down? I don't actually know. But hey, it works, and as the old saying goes, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I'm going to leave these buttons in, but next I want to get the automatic switch going using the calibrated skulk sensors I got from Bias Icewing. Alright, so this is the absolute last thing you ever want to see when you're making such a large build. As I was trying to put in the skulk sensor, as you can see, I have wool to try and keep it from going off too often. I'm also trying to figure out a way to make this spam proof so that if you hover in this area, you're not going to break the gate, which I've done several times now, just by having it constantly opening and closing. I also need to put on the sensor on the other side in order to close this up. So after you come through, there should be another sensor it'll do, and then the gate will close behind you. However, as I was extending the bridge, well, the underside of the bridge that has the room for the redstone, in order to connect it to the main part of the base, I noticed something that really got me down. If you see here, I put the entire thing in the wrong spot. This is all supposed to be over by 16 squares that direction, and that way, you would have been able to see a Grandois Bridge from the library. As you cross the bridge, you still could have seen this underside of the library support structures, which I still really like, and everything else. And unfortunately, this is just too much to build to tear it out and start again. So I am going to have to figure out a way to live with it. Please give me your comments of support, suggestions, and condolences in the section down below. But I will be calling it quits here and come back to this with a fresh take in the morning, and we will get back to that in our next episode. So once again, thank you all for joining me one more time in this shifted reality. Please like and subscribe, and if you can, follow along in more episodes, and please do leave comments. I would love to engage with the community as we grow this channel.